things are possible when we believe. Old chains are breakable when we receive Yahweh. You keep your promises. If you said it, we believe it. If you said it, yeah. If you said it, we believe it. If you said it, we believe it. 'Cause you're a man of your word. If you said it, we believe it. If you said it, we believe it. 'Cause you're a man of your word.
All things are possible when we believe. Old chains are breakable when we receive Yahweh. You keep your promises.
If you said it, we believe it. If you said it, if you said it, we believe it. Oh, 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 oh. If you said it, we believe it. You're a man of your word. If you said it, we believe it. Oh, 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 oh. If you said it, we believe it. 'Cause you're a man of your word.
We have this confidence. You'll finish what you started. God, you have never failed. You won't start with me. Present in every step. Patient with every heartache. God, you have never failed. You won't start with me. We have this confidence. You'll finish what you started. God, you have never failed. You won't start with me. You're present in every step. Patient with every heartache. God, you have never failed. You won't start with me.
If you said it, we believe it. Oh, 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 oh. If you said it, we believe it. If you said it, we believe it. 'Cause you're a man of your word. If you said it, we believe it. Oh, 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 oh. If you said it, we believe it. One of the promises from the word, God says, no one will be able to stand up against you all the days of your life. He says, as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. We can have confidence in approaching God because he is a man of his word. If you said it, we believe it. Oh, you're a man of your word. If you said it, we believe it. If you said it, we believe it. 'Cause if you said it, we believe it. If you said it, we believe it. 'Cause you're a man of your word. If you said it, we believe it. Oh, if you said it, we believe it. 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 'Cause you're a man of your word. If you said it, we believe it. You're a man of your word. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. I worship you. Yeah, you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't
Hey, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Outpost Live. Just a few announcements for you this week to let you know about what's going on at Chi Alpha here at CSU. First, we'll be online this week, obviously, and next week as well, just trying to honor the campus and our community to try to keep them safe as everybody comes back. After that, we'll be back at Joe's, kind of like we did last semester with multiple services, and it'll be really great. We're really looking forward to seeing you all, so look forward to that. Again, online next week, and then back at Joe's the week after that. Second, we want to let you know about a Junior Senior Connect that's happening January 30th. It will be at 1:30 in the afternoon. It's Saturday, January 30th at Foothills Church. If you're a junior or senior and you want to hang out, dream about the future together, and just get some good fellowship and some good time together, please come by. It'll be a really great time. Look to get a little rowdy, and if you have a spike ball set, hacky sack, or just a game you might want to play, please, by all means, bring it. Third, we want to let you know about what's been happening with your offering a little bit. Last semester, Outpost and Chi Alpha was so generous to trust the Lord with their finances. Outpost received $4,300, which really helps make what we do possible. It doesn't go to any of the staff. It just goes to things like Outpost Live, renting the space at Joe's, and other events that a lot of you have experienced the blessing of, and other people will experience the blessing of. If you'd like to give and continue giving, you can do it at xacsu.com, or you can do it through Venmo. Last but not least, if you are not connected to a small group, maybe your roommate or somebody invited you to come watch this with them, we'd love to see you connect. You can come to our website, xaccu.com. Let us get your contact information. We'll be sure to reach out to you to help you plug in a little deeper into our community. Small groups are the lifeblood of what we do. We love being able to get together with a few people we trust to discuss God's Word and just have fellowship. So that's about it. Let me pray for Nate, and we'll listen to what the Lord has for us tonight. Jesus, we thank you for allowing us to gather together as community to worship you, to listen to your word. And God, we pray that tonight we would heed your word in our hearts, that our lives would be reflective of what you say and how you want us to live. God, please bless Nate as he shares. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hey, it's good to be with you guys tonight. Whether you're in your small group doing a watch party or just on your own watching from some other location, we're honored that you decided to spend some time with us here in Chi Alpha and with Outpost Live here right now. And we're starting a new series as we start this new semester, and we are going to be looking for the next few weeks, looking in the Old Testament at this account of the Exodus story of Israel. Now, if you're new to the Bible, or if you're just kind of getting more familiar with the Bible, it's a common perception to think, okay, well, the Old Testament, I'm not sure how to correlate that and connect that to the New Testament. We have these two big picture concepts that we break the Bible up into. And we typically, as good Gen Zers or good millennials, will tend to say, like, well, I like the New Testament because it's new, it's redone, renovated, it's got fewer issues with it, right? And we kind of think that way with the New Testament. We've got Jesus, we've got the cross, we've got the church developing, and we think, man, we like this, but we're not really sure what to think about the Old Testament. But if we take kind of our modern mindset of old and new into the Bible, we make a mistake, because we do not understand what is really happening in the New Testament unless we have a working knowledge of what is going on in the Old Testament. And so we think through like what Jesus is doing on the cross and why it matters and how he went about what he did in his ministry in response to what was developed in the Old Testament. And so we want to spend a little time this semester looking in the Old Testament, and then the question then comes up, well, how do I unpack that Old Testament? And this story, the Exodus account, is one of the best places to start, because the Exodus story in the Old Testament is what the gospel accounts are to the New Testament. It's what kind of everything really builds on and develops out of and expresses, the law of Moses, the prophets in the Old Testament. All of this is built up out of really what Israel would experience about God in the Exodus account. And so we're going to start tonight in Exodus chapter 3, if you have your Bibles or open up your phone. But in Exodus chapter 3, we're going to start with this very famous story of Moses and the burning bush. And it starts this way. In Exodus chapter 3, starting in the first verse, it says, "Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, Here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At this Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites and Hittites and Amorites and Perizzites, Hivites and Jebusites. And now the city of the Israelites has reached, or the cries of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. Moses said to God, Suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, What is his name? Then what shall I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. So this account is the best place for us to be really kind of starting this conversation about the Old Testament, about the Exodus story, because in this moment, we have to realize to Moses, he doesn't know a lot about God yet. You know, he has kind of a cultural faith. He knows God by association. You know, the God of his forefathers, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, they had this interaction with this God, but they don't have a lot of working theology. They don't have a lot of experience as a nation with him. And so for Moses, there's a lot of confusion. And so God says, well, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He starts by association. And so often people start their relationship with God by association. Well, he's the God of my friend over here, but I don't know a lot about him yet. This is Moses right here. He has kind of a cultural faith, but he doesn't have an experiential faith. And so we want to ask really two questions as we look at these stories over the next few weeks. And one of them is, what does this tell us about God? What does this tell us about how God was making himself known to Moses and to Israel? And then the second question is, how should we then live in response to that revelation by God? And so as we look at this story, the first question the first observation we have is how God kind of reveals himself to Moses in this burning bush. And it's really fascinating to Moses. He's like, what is going on? One thing that's articulated in this passage and one that's kind of intuitive to the situation that would have drawn Moses into trying to figure out what's going on. One is that, the bush is not burning up. And I grew up in eastern Oregon, much like eastern Colorado. It had a lot of sagebrush, tumbleweed, and so from experience, I can tell you, like, a bush like that, it burns up. It's hot, it's fast, it burns up really quickly, but then it's done. And yet it's not happening. It's not burning up quickly. It's not burning up at all. But the other thing is it's not spreading, right? And if you grew up in a place similar to this, you would expect, bushes are rarely by themselves kind of out there on their own. It's normally brush. And the fact that this bush is not burning up, it's not spreading, is probably something intuitively strange to Moses as well. And so he goes over to the bush, and he's looking at this, and then God starts to speak. But what does that tell us about God? And the first thing that I just want to highlight here is that this can tell us this is the God who transcends and who shapes reality. This is the God who transcends reality. Somehow he's able to transcend the natural laws of nature, and yet he can shape reality to suit his needs and his desires. So I was watching this physics documentary here last week, and whenever I often use examples or metaphors or things from science, it's just fascinating to me. To me, it's kind of like a burning bush. It fills me with a sense of awe and wonder at what God is like through studying how the physical world works. But normally, when I reference these things, one of two responses happen. Half of you guys come up to me and say, we love it. It kind of demystifies the conversation about science and faith and all of that. The other half of you come up to me and say, I have no idea what you're talking about. So tonight, I'm hoping to be able to just kind of share with you a little bit of the wonder for just a minute here, the wonder that I have, and hopefully not leave you too confused. However, I am about to very briefly highlight one of the great mysteries in science from the last 100 years. But in this documentary, it was nothing new. It was just kind of summarizing a lot of things, and it was talking about quantum mechanics. Now, if you don't know what quantum mechanics are, it's the quantum world, the subatomic. Take the atom, go further in, look closer. How does the world work at its most fundamental level? And this documentary was just giving kind of a summary of one of the things that first came up when they were discovering the subatomic world, and that was through a study they did where that's famously just called the double slit test experiment. And if you don't know anything about it, watch YouTube later tonight. There's any number of summaries out there about it. I've got a couple of books that will try to explain it to you. The point isn't to try to explain what they discovered, but a little bit deeper of the summaries of what they discovered. And what they figured out was that at the subatomic level, the world works very differently than what we experience. And what they figured out were that electrons, these little particles that are rotating around an atom, these little bits of energy and such, are rotating around an atom. They don't act like they should. And that actually one electron was, in this experiment, acting like mini electrons. And not just like it acted like it was, but it actually was mini electrons. And they said that's really spooky and really weird. They call it spooky action, right? And so it was really weird. So they said, okay, well, let's look at it. So they tried to observe it. And suddenly the very act of observing it collapsed that electron back into one, and it started acting like one electron again. Now, if you're confused at this point, welcome to the last 100 years of quantum mechanics. They have continuously tried to figure out, well, that can't be really what's going on. Albert Einstein hated the summaries of this experiment because he didn't know what to do with it with his general relativity. But in 2005 and in 2011, there was a number of experiments that pretty conclusively showed actually that is exactly what's happening. There's a famous example that in popular society is Schrodinger's cat, if you've ever heard that reference but don't really know what it is. It's this idea that if you had a cat in a box, at the quantum level, that cat, and if it had equal probability of being alive and or dead, it is actually both until you open the box. So it's just strange. So here's this, they were doing this summary in this documentary of this stuff, and I'm pretty sure it was Sir Roger Penrose who was doing the audio for this summary, who is one of the most famous physicists of our day, and friend of Stephen Hawking, and helped him with a lot of his research. But Penrose is just kind of musing at the end of this documentary. He makes reference that we don't know what to do with this, because either we're really left with no good options for how to explain it. And he kind of says basically either there is every quantum event happens, meaning that every time a quantum event happens, that a new universe is created that is exactly like our universe, except where every quantum potential happens. So in one, you come to CSU, and another is exactly the same, except that you go to DU or CU, or any number of things happen. But it's nonsensical because there's no explanation for where all of the energy and matter would come from that would create those universes, and it would be almost infinite. Every second you'd have infinite number of universes being created, and it just doesn't make any sense. He said, or there is a theory out there that 100 years of the smartest minds in the world have never even imagined, that we just can't even think of, or consciousness is more powerful than we ever realized, that the observation of it somehow is changing the physical world. But that doesn't make sense, because if evolution develops, then how did it start when we weren't observing it? And how does the world work where we're not observing it? So it didn't make any sense to him. And yet in modern Christianity, there is one of the greatest arguments being made right now in the sciences for the existence of God is the idea of causality, that something had to start the domino effect. And if there was a consciousness out there that was supremely powerful, was self-determining, was able to make its own choices and decisions and self-aware, and was able to create the universe in its power, that God would transcend the natural world, but that being would also be able to interact with our natural world and shape it around his will. And that he would be able to kind of collapse, if you will. That's what the word they use is. It collapses the potentials into a reality. But that consciousness, that being, would be able to collapse reality around him to align with him. And so I just think I just thought it was fascinating when I was hearing that. It was like the only good argument is that consciousness, by science, is that consciousness is what's causing it. But that couldn't be the reason why creation started, unless you had God into the equation. And here's God, and God is basically showing Moses, like, hey, I transcend this natural world. But I'm not a God who just created it and moved on because I don't care. He's like, I'm interacting with the world. I'm trying to shape the world around me. And I think the practical question, well, how should we then live, is a question like, are we letting God transcend, but really begin to transform our lives? Are we letting God into our lives? Are we letting him observe our life, if you will? Now, if you've been watching, reading Knowledge of the Holy, or watching some of our stuff from over Christmas break, you're like, I remember God is omnipresent, which is true. But there's a difference between the experience of God's presence and the knowledge of God's being. Right? Moses, right before the burning bush, was different than Moses' experience with the burning bush. And this idea that God is saying, hey, I want to draw near to you. I want you to draw near to me. I want to interact. I want to change your life. Moses' life would forever be changed, transformed, because of the interactions that he would have with God. But has your life been transformed? Have you let God into your life? Or are there things that you, either because of shame, like Adam and Eve in the garden, like, God, we have rebelled from you and we're ashamed of it and we don't want you to see us. They hid from God. Or because of pride, say, I want to do it my own way. But when people say, I need to make myself right before I come to God, you miss the whole idea of the Bible. The idea of the Bible is that you have to draw near to God, and God, by drawing near to you, changes you, transforms you, makes you into a new creation. He's the one that transforms you. And I love watching when young people, oftentimes with their mess, with all of the potentials in their life that have become realized, things that they knew were not how they were meant to be or how they were meant to live, but they come with the mess that they have made their lives. They come to God and pursue him. They begin to be transformed just by abiding in his presence, by letting him draw near to them. So where are those places? We call it sin in the Bible, where we've missed the mark, where potentials in our life that should never have been realized, things that we know where we were rebelling from God, being selfish and sinful and living other than how he designed us to be. And all these things started expressing in our lives. But if we come to God and we say, God, would you draw near to me? I need you. I need you to clean up the mess in my life that I have made of it. And I need you to warp my reality, to transform my reality. He promises to make us into a new creation. And not just for those who have not yet experienced that, but for all of us who are following God. Are we letting God transform our lives in that practical way? But then the question comes up, well, how do I let God in? How do I let God transform my life? How do I let him observe me and collapse all of the things in my life to align to his character, if you will? And I think this passage shows us a couple of things to point us in the right direction. And one of them is how God tells Moses to respond to God's presence before him. And God says two things. He says, one, Moses, don't come any closer, which we'll get to here in a second. But then he says, take off your sandals, because the ground below your feet is holy. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us why that's like the cause and effect. Like, why should I take my sandals off? Because the ground is holy. But I think through the context of the story, we can really kind of extrapolate what's going on. You know, last month over the holidays, I was in Oregon with my family, and one day we went to the coast. We went to the beach. And the Oregon coast, if you've ever been up in the Pacific Northwest, it's beautiful. Sheer cliffs, tons of lighthouses and things like that. But it's also maybe not the place you would go just to lounge out on the beach. You know, it's a little bit kind of coarser sand. It's cold water. And you even have to be kind of careful because there's all kinds of rip tides and things that can happen. But we took our boys out to the beach, and what is the first thing they want to do? They want to throw off their shoes. They want to get their feet into the sand. They want to get into the water and feel the water waves just crash over them. They want to experience, the moment and where they're at. And God tells Moses, he's like, take the sandals off your feet. And I think what God is saying in that moment is really simply saying, get the things off of you that are keeping you from experiencing me in this moment. Right? Like, don't just hear me. Don't just listen to my words or understand my commands, but experience my presence. Stay a while. Linger. Don't go anywhere. And what's interesting is, sandals aren't a bad thing. If you're a shepherd back then, going over the hills and the countryside, I mean, sandals are a good thing. But in this moment, they were in some way keeping Moses from fully experiencing the moment with Yahweh. And so God said, take your sandals off your feet. What are the things in our lives that are keeping us from experiencing God? Do you have regular time with the Lord? Do you have time where you're pressing into the Lord to say, God, I want not just to do my religious duty, so I'm going to read this passage or, say a few prayers here, but is the cry of my heart to press into the presence of God? And if that is your heart, if that is your cry, do you spend time doing that? And what do you need to get out of the way to be able to do that? Right? What good things, even the classes or the homework or the friends, or dare I say sometimes even Chi Alpha, sleep sometimes. What do I need to get out of the way at times so I can just spend time abiding and pressing into the presence of God? Not just saying, God, I need you to come into my life and clean up the mess I've made and to transform me from the inside. But what do I need to do to press into that presence with the Lord? What are the things I need to get out of the way so that I can spend time abiding and pressing into his presence? And so the other thing that God tells Moses is, secondly, really first here in this story, is he says, don't come any closer. Right? It's kind of like my boys at the beach. They're like, hey, this can be dangerous, right? There's rip tides here, and we want to enjoy it, but there's power here. And God's talking to Moses, and God's saying, hey, I'm the transcendent God that creates universes for a living, right? Like there's power here, and there's only so far we can go. We're going to get there, right? Read the rest of the story of the Bible. We're going to keep moving into closer connection with one another, but hold off just a little bit. But what's fascinating to me, frankly, is the fact that God had to stop Moses, because Moses was like a fly to the flame. He's pressing in to that presence, and he wants more. In fact, we see Moses' life from that point forward forever marked by a deep longing, a holy dissatisfaction with the Lord. He constantly is trying to press closer. He tells God, I want to see your face later. He's constantly spending his time in the tabernacle trying to get as close to the presence of God. And And you actually, I think Tozer is the one who says that if you look at the patriarchs, it's an easy observation to make that if you see the patriarchs throughout the Old Testament, the ones who had encounters with God, they were forever marked by a desire to draw closer to that God. Which is why when I hear students who have this sort of coolness to their faith, this satisfaction with their religious experience with God, they're like, yeah, I've been there, done that. I understand, the idea of salvation, and I've prayed my prayer. And at best, they have a faith like Moses before the burning bush. At worst, they just have never even gone there and they've walked away. But at the least, I would say they have not. No, you haven't gone there. No, you've not been there, done that. Because those people throughout history, and I would say even in my own life, when you have suddenly been marked by pressing in and deeper into the place with God to say, God, I just want more of you. If you've had that moment, if you've had that season, suddenly your life is forever marked. And there's a holy dissatisfaction with everything else. And everything else is seen through that lens of saying, God, you really are that place of peace and joy and comfort and satisfaction and transformation. And you have a longing that never seems to ever leave you again. And so we need that. But you might ask, well, is that just for some people? Right? Okay, I get the idea, right? Like God is that transformative God, but what is that for me? Do I get that experience, or am I just kind of relegated to sort of faith, sort of like an encounter with God in the same way that you have an experience with me tonight? It's kind of one-sided. That's how we typically think about this, right? It's kind of like, hey, I'm watching Nate, hearing Nate tonight, but Nate doesn't even see me or is not interacting with me tonight. That's kind of how we typically think about God. But this story would be followed up by a man who 2,000 years ago would tell the crowds, before Abraham was, I am. And it wouldn't just be strange because Abraham was long since dead, but that he was even grammatically incorrect in the way he said it. He didn't say before Abraham was, I was. He said before Abraham was, I am. Because what that man was claiming was that I am the God that was referencing Abraham back in the bush. I am the God of your fathers. I am the God of Abraham. And I am the God that when people ask, who am I am that I am. And Jesus would say, I am God, and I am the place where you can come to know me. And before Jesus would ascend to heaven, he would tell his disciples, I will be with you always, even to the very end of the age. And he said, I'll give you my Spirit, the Holy Spirit, to come and be and reside with you, that we can have this relationship with God that's not just one-sided, but is a relationship that goes two ways. But we have to get out of the way things that are in our life so that we can spend time focusing on pursuing relationship and that intimacy with him. And we need to let him in to our life to transform our life from the inside out. And so right now, if you are with your small group, I just want to encourage small group leaders to just, spend a few minutes here and just talk and say, hey, are there things in your life right now where you're saying, I have not let God in here? Maybe for the first time, I have not let God in my life. He is not the Lord of my life. And maybe that's, hey, I want to start this semester by beginning to pursue after God in my life. And so just share that. Or maybe it's, I've been a follower of Jesus, but this relationship, I've not let the Lord into that. Or maybe my ambition in my life, that's kind of separate from my faith. I've got kind of a cool faith. I've been there, done that. He's part of my life, but I've got other ambitions in my life. And just ask, is there anyone in the room right now who, God, I need to let you into my life in a greater way to transform me from the inside out. I can't do this. I'm making a mess of it. I need you to lead me. Or maybe you're someone who just says, God, as we start this semester, I need to pursue you more intentionally. And in what way this semester are you going to spend time? And what are the things that you need to kind of get out of the way so that you can focus on that relationship with God? And so small group leaders, I just encourage you guys just to process that with each other right now and share yourself kind of where you're at and just pray for one another. If you're watching this and you're just on your own, that's okay. you can respond yourself where you're at right now. But I encourage you, if you do respond in some way, that share that with someone else who is also following after Jesus. As we do that this semester, my prayer is that we would be a community who let God work in greater and greater ways, that we would come to know this God in a more profound way as we see our lives transformed as a result of his work in our lives. And as we study the story of Israel, that we would come to realize that their story can become our story and Moses' story can become ours. Because I am that I am was not a statement of you cannot know me, but it was an invitation to journey with this God as he begins to reveal more and more about his character and who he is.